Armchair Model Railroading. What is it and why do we do it? That's coming right up. Hi, I'm Roy Smith. I'm reading an article about the soda ash industry in southwestern Wyoming, an industry that is served by the Union Pacific Railroad. The article appears in the Streamliner, the official magazine of the Union Pacific Historical Society. Why am I sitting here reading this article? Because it contains information about the prototype that I am modeling. What I'm doing right now qualifies as armchair model railroading, and that's what I'd like to talk to you about today, armchair model railroading. Armchair model railroading simply means spending time thinking about what you might like to do before you actually do it. It means visualizing the layout of your dreams in your mind before you begin to build the layout. And it also means visualizing changes that you might like to make on your existing layout before you actually make those changes. There's a couple of things I'd like to say about armchair model railroading right up front. First, the armchair is optional. In fact, I do most of my armchair model railroading at my computer. The second, armchairing doesn't mean that you're not a model railroader. And third, it definitely is not a waste of time. In fact, I believe that armchair model railroading is an essential part of the hobby. Why? Because everything that has ever been created began with a thought or an idea. We need to visualize the layout we would like to build before we actually can begin to build it. Basically, we design our layouts in our heads before we build them. But armchair model railroading isn't something that we only do before we begin to build our layouts. The fact is, you may discover some changes that you would like to make when you are already building and operating your layout. You may need to do a little more armchairing before you begin to make those changes. Beginners do it, old-timers do it, and I do it a lot. Armchair model railroading includes a bunch of activities. We daydream, we envision the layout in our minds, we read magazines and books about model railroading. I like to watch videos about model railroading. I like to study the prototype I am modeling. I spend enormous amounts of time on the internet. We all need to do some research. We need to study the techniques of others. We need to study published layout plans. And we need to talk with others in the hobby. Before you start to build your layout, you have to make some important decisions. Where you will build the layout. Will the layout be freelanced or will it be based on a real prototype? What scale will it be? HO, N, or some other scale? What era do you want to model? Steam, transition, or diesel? Will it be operated by DC or DCC? These are just a few of the things you will need to decide. For me, some of these decisions were easy. For example, there was only one place to put my layout in the house, a spare bedroom measuring 10 feet by 12 feet. I had no other choice. There was no question in my mind that I would build my layout in N-scale, just like my previous N-scale layout back in the mid-1980s. And a modern era layout was an easy choice because I love those big, powerful diesels. I knew I wanted to base my layout on a real prototype, the Union Pacific Evanston subdivision, which runs from Green River, Wyoming to Ogden, Utah, because I've always been fascinated by the deserts and semi-arid scenery of the American West. I knew from the get-go that I wanted to model in DCC, but selecting a DCC system was a long and difficult choice. Eventually I chose an NCE power cab for my layout, but this was one example of the kinds of decisions that I had to make early on. The time you spend doing research now can help you avoid costly mistakes later on. It could reduce the number of changes you will have to make on your layout later on when you are already building and operating it. One area that I failed to think about adequately when I was armchairing was the kinds of industries I should put on my layout. Partly this was because the prototype I'm modeling doesn't have a lot of small industries, but also I didn't give a lot of thought to it because I wasn't really all that interested in industrial switching. Yard classification and interchange operations, yes, but industrial switching, no. So adding industries to my layout came as an afterthought. After making these kinds of decisions, I began to spend an enormous amount of time trying to come up with the perfect track plan. I knew I didn't want a spaghetti bowl of track with trains running back and forth through the same scene multiple times, and I knew I wanted a high ratio of scenery to track. I didn't want to create a layout jam-packed full of track and structures. I ended up creating a variety of track plans in my head before drawing up the final version on my computer using Rail Modeler for Mac. This is what my track plan looks like today. The overall track plan hasn't changed very much since I first envisioned it, but I must tell you that I have never been happy with those two helixes. Even though I was unhappy with them, I had to incorporate them into the track plan because I wanted a walk-in layout with no duck-unders. I especially disliked the Eastern Helix, which I built early on. Now, this helix is hidden behind fascia. Trains running in it disappear for long periods of time, and the track is difficult to reach for cleaning and fixing any derailments that might occur. I will have to do something about it. At least I had enough good sense when thinking about and building my Western Helix to leave it open and accessible. I think we all spend a lot of time trying to visualize a perfect track plan when armchairing. But after laying the track and operating on it for a while, we may discover that it's not quite working. So, back to the mental drawing board we go to come up with changes that will improve our layout operationally. For example, I've rebuilt the yard at Evanston on my layout 3 times so far, and back in February I uploaded a video describing 5 specific changes that I wanted to make in the arrangement of my track at various locations on my layout. To me, the track planning is a transition between armchair model railroading and actual model railroading. First you envision the track plan, then you begin to draw it, and finally you begin to build it. But there may be constraints that keep you locked into armchair mode. Maybe you're going to be moving soon to a new house and you don't want to start building your layout until you move into your new house. In my case, frequent moves throughout my military career made it difficult for me to build a permanent layout of my dreams. Maybe you don't have sufficient time to build a layout right now. Most people still have to go to work. I like to say, though, that I consider work to be a nasty 4-letter word. I don't do it anymore. I don't have time for it. I'm too busy with my model railroad. Health issues may prevent you from getting started on your layout. For me, building bench work has become increasingly difficult as I've gotten older. We all have expenses in life, and let's face it, model railroading is an expensive hobby. Perhaps you lack the skills you need to build the layout of your dreams. Not having space in which to build the layout of your dreams can frustrate you. Or maybe you're just indecisive about what kind of layout to build. This is a big one for me. I often don't know what to do, so I end up doing nothing. We model railroaders often face constraints in time, money, skill, and space. Any of these things can keep us locked in armchair mode for a long time. It's okay to enjoy the process of thinking about and dreaming about the layout you'd like to build, or changes in your existing track arrangement that will improve your layout operationally. You could spend your entire life as an armchair model railroader, but sooner or later you may want to just get up out of your chair and go build something. I know because it happens to me all the time. For example, I spent a lot of time thinking about my staging yard. I was especially unhappy with those stub-ended tracks. Finally, I got so tired of it that I just got up and started changing the track arrangement. Soon, all 8 tracks in the yard will be double-ended, and soon I will be able to do a video describing the modifications of my staging yard. The fact is, I had to visualize the changes there before I could actually begin to make them. I often procrastinate when there's something I should do on the layout, but I don't feel like doing it. For example, I still have a lot of drop feeders that hang down and still need to be connected to the bus wires. And I have to modify some of the layout wiring on my layout because of changes in the track arrangement. For me, it's easier to watch YouTube videos about model railroading than it is to do that wiring. Avoiding unpleasant tasks is a big reason why it's taking me so long to build my layout. But sooner or later, I will get tired of thinking about doing the unpleasant tasks, and I will just get up and do them. And after I do them, I will think to myself, as I always do, now that wasn't so bad. Why didn't I do it sooner? I guess I didn't do it sooner because I needed to do some more armchair modeling first. All phases of model railroading are supposed to be fun, and that includes the first phase of all, armchair model railroading. But sooner or later you may want to get up from your chair and start to build the layout of your dreams. Well, that's what I have to say about armchair model railroading. As always, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comment section down below. I'd like to thank you for watching, and until next time, happy railroading.